It's 1803. You live in London. You have a daughter named Alice. She's 3 years old. She's frail, bow-legged, and needs help. You go down to the local fishery to a fisherman who has a eerily smelly oil that people are starting to say is helping them heal. You give this to Alice, and she starts healing within days and becomes a new kid again within 6 months. The disease I'm talking about is called rickets. It was very prevalent in the 1800s. Roughly up to 60% of children had it. And the reason for it was a lack of vitamin D. And the smelly oil was cod liver oil, discovered in the 1800s by local fisheries in northern Europe. It was then bottled in the 1850s, but not until in the 1920s did it start to become popular, when science finally caught up and said, hey, there's what we call vitamin D and vitamin A in there, and you actually need this for proper skeletal development in children in utero, and then just general health for human beings. And so if you want your children to have proper skeletal growth in utero and throughout their childhood, which means uh, better likelihood that they won't have braces, better likelihood that your daughter won't have future birth issues in the delivery room, and then general health, then you should listen in, because we're going to be talking about cod liver oil.
Yeah, so that was a good intro. So I think most people think, and I've thought this for most of my life, is that crooked teeth or even hips that aren't very wide for women for having babies are basically just genetic or bad luck. But the research tells a completely different story, an interesting story in my eyes, and the real culprit of it is like underdeveloped jaw structures and underdeveloped hip growth, and that's basically driven by modern lifestyle factors over the last 100 200 years. And Randy's going to share some of the Weston A price findings from the 1930s that is still being followed in certain parts of the United States and in the world, but not enough in my eyes. And then I'll share a couple other things, but the bottom line is like straight teeth is a downstream of good jaw development, and the same thing goes for wide hips. So
100%. 100%. So Weston A. Price, he was a dentist, and he basically just constantly would see a ton of problems in his office around cavities, jawline structures, cramped teeth, needing of braces, and those types of dentistry and surgery. And he wanted to figure it out. So then he traveled to all of these like non-industrialized indigenous cultures, and it was like the Inuits, the Aborigine Australians, the Pacific Islanders, and Swiss, also all over the world, and traveled and really understood. And what he consistently documented is that like the ones that were still on their native diets and not modernized had really broad dental arches, and we'll show you what that means. Broad dental arch, well-aligned teeth, minimal cavities, and just like a really well-formed facial structure. And within one generation, this starts to deteriorate when these cultures become modernized. 1930s was a perfect time where he came in and was able to see and took a bunch of pictures. And in this book, there is pictures galore, as you can see on the front. And it shows that as soon as they start becoming modernized and shift their diets to a modern diet, breads, sugars, all those things, they start to have way more cavities, and they're having facial structure issues, and so on and so forth.
Teeth, yeah.
Crooked teeth, etc. It doesn't do it justice. I'll just show you like a couple pictures of what he took. So let me just share my screen real quick. And this is a picture here on the left side of a traditional diet: wide dental arches, straight teeth, no cavities, excellent health. Modern diet starts to come in. You see missing teeth. The jawline starts narrowing, as you can see here. It starts narrowing down. The nasal structure starts to pinch here, so then you start having nasal problems. And then this is the next generation plus a modern diet, and so then a lot of like modern issues. And this picture here, I think, is a good representation of like a native culture with like beautiful jawline, perfectly structured teeth, wide nasal passage there, and it kind of like saves you from all of the issues. Well, not saves you from the issues, but it's an indication of what you can get from this. And what he discovered was that these native diets had three key fat-soluble vitamins. It was vitamin A, vitamin D, and then what we found out much later, he called activator X, which is vitamin K2, which is kind of helps both of those fat-soluble vitamins A and D synthesize and metabolize correctly. And so with those three, he owed the beautiful jawline and structured health for these aborigines and native cultures. And so what he started doing is leveraging cod liver oil specifically because it has a unique combination of two of those fat-soluble vitamins at a high dosage in cod liver oil, and as well as like he would add butter oil to it, because a grass-fed butter, especially in the spring when the cows are eating the rich grass, the luscious grass, it's really rich in K2. And that's one of the things he noticed in all of these different cultures is like prior to a fertility, to improve fertility prior to conception, 6 months before conception, these native cultures would feed the mothers like raw milk, really rich raw milk, for example, in the lush rainy season. And the reason was is really, really rich in vitamin K2 and also these other vitamins. And so that's yeah. And one of the things I wanted to mention in this is that some of these cultures would go to very, very great lengths just to get this, these vitamins. And so the South Sea Islanders of the Maori tribe of New Zealand expose themselves to danger by swimming out and hunting a shark because they considered the shark's liver a sacred food necessary for healthy babies. Another culture, the native peoples living in the Andes Mountains, they're a mountain tribe. They would travel to get 700-mile trips, 100 miles, to go get caviar, and then they would bring it up. So they'd go down to the water, get caviar, bring it back up, because it's really, really rich, obviously, in A and D. And then the other one, of course, with cod liver oil and fish eggs is DHA, and other key vitamins like zinc and iodine. And so it was something that he outlines in this book really well, and it's why cod liver oil started becoming popular. And then there's another book called the Nourishing Traditions book of baby and child care, who take some of this, they take some of the research from this and help you raise healthy children with it. And yeah, that's Weston A. Price. It's a mountain of valuable knowledge.
Yeah, to me, those pictures is that, the proof is in the pudding, or the proof is in the cod liver oil. If it's like just comparing them generation over generation, how it subtly declined. And then once I learned about this, and you start looking at our kids today, or even myself, right? I didn't eat
Yep.
the best diet when I was a kid, and and it's subtly gotten worse and worse. And you just look at the jaw structures and the nasal width of most of society. It's a big key problem. That's why dentists and teeth implant folks and everyone are making a ton of money, is because mainly because of this. It's our diet. There's a
Yep.
couple other things that I've heard a lot about, and and then I was just looking this up and doing a little bit more research with. But one of them is nasal breathing, and it's kind of a downstream from some of these issues. Like if you have a shorter nose,
Yeah.
you're gonna breathe out your mouth more. But they say about over 50% of humans, kids and adults, mouth breathe, and it's probably even larger than that. But the big issue there is our nose filters a lot of germs, and it humidifies, and it even like pressurizes air apparently to where it like supports our jaw structure, at least proper jaw structure, and the palate too. And mouth breathing causes like your tongue to drop off your roof. This is a whole other thing where your tongue is on the bottom and not resting on the top of your mouth, is a big thing when you're mouth breathing. So there's a ton of studies that show chronic mouth breathing to narrower faces and increase dental crowding. So they're kind of work hand in hand. You got bad nutrition that leads to badly formed jaw structure already, and then now your mouth breathing, and just getting worse and worse. And there's a couple studies of like a meta-analysis that mouth breathers had significantly lower jaw position. Study of like 50 children aged 6 to 15 that breathe through their mouths tend to have longer facial structures, and it was strongly correlated with abnormal facial growth. But there's many studies showing all this, so I'm not sure why we haven't heard much of it. And like I said, it's not just an issue for children, and it gets worse even with adults. Like you just don't. Your facial structure continues to get worse if you continue to mouth breathe, and then it leads to your immunity is not that great because it's bypassing the nose breathing, where it captures the hairs or capturing the germs and everything, and then your saliva gets all dried up in your mouth, and apparently that's a key natural defense system is
Yeah.
your saliva.
Yeah.
So just like many things when it comes to, and I've just been trying to examine my kids lately of how much they're mouth breathing or nose breathing. Not
Yeah.
too bad.
It's basically a compounding effect of like when you don't have proper skeletal like growth and development from utero on, then it starts like creating issues that compound, like
Yeah.
nasal breathing versus mouth breathing. Even you and I have like pretty narrow nasal, and you and I both have like nasal issues.
Mm-hmm.
But vitamin K, the vitamin K shot that every newborn gets, the reason for that is because we don't get it enough in our diets. Funny enough, it like became popular right around the same time cod liver oil came in. So I think that's another aspect that we have to give a shot full of vitamin K to every single child at newborn, because we don't have this. And so like,
or just in case that we don't have
yeah,
this, right?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's a save your, cover your ass type of thing. Cod
Yeah.
liver oil, this is the brand we use. It's
Okay.
Go ahead, Ronnie, if you want to explain it.
Yeah. No. So that's Rosita. They take it straight from, I think, near up in northern British Isles somewhere. They take it directly from the fish, just like the old days. It's the way it's produced is not through heat, so it preserves all the nutrients and minerals. The best cod liver oil money can buy, right there. My
A little
kids
expensive,
take it. I take it. You can make
but
it
it's,
last. I take it probably 2 to 3 times a week.
yep.
One other thing that was surprising is like nasal breathing leads to lower blood pressure and other factors that reduce heart risk. So like mouth breathing is correlated with heart disease as well, which is like the main, and then sleep apnea. Strong relationship of sleep apnea, mouth breathing, and sleep apnea, which is a huge thing with overweight adults these days.
That's crazy. The other one that I kind of briefly mentioned was that like Weston A. Price saw this when he's looking at the cultures, and he observed that the traditional cultures, I'm reading quote here, with nutrient dense preconception diets. So like they're giving him raw milk, the liver, yada yada yada, and they tended to have wider pelvic outlets and easier deliveries. We're talking birth. And the underlying logic is that pelvic geometry, like facial geometry, is shaped by minerals and fat-soluble vitamins during growth. And so it's just very important. And we have a ton of issues with delivery even today, women dying in childbirth.
Yeah, I think over half of births are C-sections today. And
yeah,
maybe not all of them, but I think a majority of them is a society nutrition deficiency. 100%.
100%. I'm hoping that like adding this to my daughter's diets, that they'll have an easier path for delivery if they choose to do that in their future.
A couple other things that could help, at least for the jaw, for developing your jaw structure, is chewing hard foods. Like you've seen these, maybe seen some ads if you're in this health community, but chewing like stimulates. You can get gum, like you can actually get gum that helps chew, and that's actually one of the strategies that mentioned for kids. Like if you can't get them, because if you have kids, it's tough to get them sometimes to eat hard foods, like any kind of meats. They're all kind of finicky about it. But that's like one of the primary drivers of crowding, because our soft foods, processed foods, it's all soft, everything that we give them. So that it talked about like nuts, apples, if you can't get them to eat like rough meat, nuts and apples and other like hard fruits and stuff were like a good strategy.
Like that.
Breastfeeding was big. Breastfeeding requires more complex jaw and tongue muscle movements. So then it promotes better jaw development. So they found associations with that as well, which, you tried it, 6 months plus, 6 months to a year. You want to at least try them or longer if you want. I know that's tough for women. And then, and one of the last one is like prolonged pressure from thumb or pacifiers. Like try to not get them to extend that too far into their childhood, because that affects it as well.
That's a good one. Let me rattle off a few stats real quick before we end this around like cod liver oil specifically. It was like, well, first of all, like in those traditional cultures, Weston A. Price found that vitamin, the vitamin A and D in these like traditional diets was 10 times more than in our modern diets. So they had 10 times more. And so it's just giving you the sense of like what you need to get going back to that beautiful like teeth facial structure that native gentleman had. And there's a ton of research actually on cod liver oil, and I was pulling some of this research, and like even beyond the things we're talking about, but like fertility, for example, there's 46% higher odds of so if you have vitamin D depleted women, were 46% higher odds of having a clinical pregnancy, which means having an emergency, and then 33% higher odds of live birth versus deficient women. So
pretty substantial percentages there.
Yeah. You also like birth weight. There was a study in Iceland where they're 11 times more likely to deliver an infant over 9 pounds. 11 times using cod liver oil, maternal cod liver oil. Postpartum depression is another one. IQ, cod liver and IQ, because it has DHA and EPA in it, 4.1 IQ advantage in the children tested. 84 children tested. 4 points
That's
IQ.
crazy. And I read
Yeah.
where the mother's preconception taking it, that and the kids in
This
their early
study.
adulthood
So
cognitive IQ.
this was from week 18 of pregnancy through 3 months postpartum.
Oh
That
wow.
was a study.
Okay.
So it was like during pregnancy. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Incredible.
Cardiovascular health, child mortality, of course, rickets. We already talked about type 1 diabetes, multiple sclerosis. It's endless. It's gold. It's liquid gold. Is what I
Yeah.
call it in my family.
Especially if you've had a child who had a rough start, right? Or had some complications, or and a lot of it, at the very least, nutrition can help get them through it and develop a stronger immune system. You name it, everything that you name.
Yeah. I mean, some of these children with rickets, like I was hearing stories, and they have these deformities because of this, and then it would show pictures of them like a year later, right? And they would be back to normal,
Mm.
healthy children,
Mm.
right? So like the body's an amazing way to, like, you give it what it needs, and it will be able to heal, theoretically,
Mm.
and with some anecdotal evidence. But yeah, I think we nailed it.
Yeah, it's a good way to end it.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, everybody.
Appreciate it.